does undercut the conversations we had just yesterday, all to continue to play political games.
They don't want to pay one dime for that.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Our friends across the aisle have been blocking everything, including motherhood and apple pie.
Well, there we go. Some bipartisan spirit once again on the Hill. It's looking a lot like Christmas, isn't it, John Carl?
It sure is, but for the record, we are all in favor of motherhood and apple pie here on Top Line, which begins right now.
Hello and welcome to Top Line. I'm Amy Walter.
And I'm Jonathan Carl.
And every day we bring you the latest, the breaking, the best, most up-to-date political news right at lunchtime. You can see it. Run out, grab yourself a piece of apple pie. But first, John, you want to start us off with the top lines you're seeing today.
It's the tax two-step, Amy. We see the House today will vote on the Democratic version of extending the tax cuts, which would extend the Bush tax cuts only for individuals making up to $200,000 a year. Of course, Republicans call this a tax hike on everybody else. And Amy, it may pass today in the House, but it is absolutely dead on arrival here in the Senate. So it appears the only thing this may actually accomplish is to really infuriate Republicans.
Although it may also help to give the Democratic base something, right? The folks who've been saying for a long time now they've frustrated about the fact that Democrats haven't stood up on this issue. Is this enough to placate them?
Yeah, well, that's what we'll see.
We'll find out soon enough. We don't know. All right, the next top line now, Ensign uncovered. It's a bit of good news for Senator John Ensign, who he's been told apparently by the Department of Justice that they are no longer investigating him. Now, between that and the FEC, it looks as if John Ensign has escaped any sort of scrutiny, at least legal scrutiny. The only question now is what the Ethics Committee in the Senate will do. But of course, the real question is that enough to get him out of hot water with voters in Nevada? He did, John, as I recall, admit to the fact that he had an affair with his wife's best friend, right?
Yes, I believe we do recall that quite vividly. Yeah. And look, he's going to have a tough time back in Nevada. A great little detail, Amy, though, that I noticed a short while ago was that when Sharon Angle had her debate prep sessions for her debate against Harry Reid, do you recall, did you know who played Harry Reid in those debate sessions?
Oh, please say it was John Ensign.
It was John Ensign. So very quietly, we weren't told at the time. So, you know, who knows? There's still some folks there that still seem happy with John Ensign in Republican circles. But next up, we have a whole nother kind of debt crisis. You'll love this one, Amy. The Republican National Committee is facing a reported $15 million in debt and had to put on notice its vendors that they would not be able to pay some of them on time. This kind of debt crisis obviously not too well timed for Michael Steele, who is now making a decision about whether or not to run for chairman again.
Yeah, I mean, it looks all but likely that Steele is not going to make the run for chairman. A whole bunch of folks got together yesterday, and while they didn't outright attack Steele personally, they did make a lot of comments about fundraising. It seems like the writing is very much on the wall for Michael Steele. And finally, Pawlenty's pardon, all right, in the news today up in Minnesota, that a man pardoned by Tim Pawlenty and the parole board 2 years ago by Governor Pawlenty, now being charged with sex offense with a minor. Now, the Pawlenty's telling folks, look, this guy lied to us. He lied to the parole board. We expect to, if he's accused, that he will be charged. But the bigger problem, of course, John, is the fact that now you're going to see Governor Pawlenty on tour in January, talking about his book, potentially talking about his presidential ambitions. This is not something he had on his agenda.
Yeah, no, it's not good. This is not the law and order message. And of course, Mike Huckabee has his own pardon issues from his period as governor down in Arkansas. Neither one a very good thing for either candidate.
That's right. Well, this is sort of an awkward transition, but we are now joined by Kathleen Townsend, who's the former lieutenant governor, of course, of Maryland, currently the chairwoman of Crossroads to Bridges. This is a 527, correct, group dedicated to funding pro-democratic causes, candidates. let's talk a little bit about what your expectations are for this group and why a group like this didn't exist in the 2010 elections.
Well, the fact that it didn't exist turned out to be a disaster because, as you know, the Republicans outspent the Democrats by $70 million. And that can turn a lot of elections, and we could have done better in the last round if we had more money. So we're going to make sure that in the 2 years, 2012, we're going to have money. We're going to raise it, and we're going to make sure that we're going to give it to Democrats. We've got a great message. We're going to build for our future. We want to build bridges, you know. We want to have an infrastructure. We want to have jobs and create them and help people to use their talents. And we've got to be able to compete money-wise against the Republicans.
Kathleen, when David Brock first announced that this effort was going forward, he said he had $4 million in pledges. How much do you think, do you have a target goal, how much you hope to raise, how much you think you can raise for the next cycle?
Well, you're talking to me. I want to raise, $80 million. I want to raise $100 million. I want to compete dollar for a dollar to the Republicans, and I want to beat them. But realistically, we'll have a better sense in a couple of months about what we can do. I think we've got to make sure we raise the money, we start be able to spend it well, and we be able to get our message out that Democrats are the party that is going to lead America well into this 21st century. We're going to create jobs. We're going to be able to compete with the emerging markets. We're going to make sure that we're going to have a strong middle class. That's what we need, and we need to make sure that that message gets out, because I don't think we were able to do that because we didn't have the funds in the last election.
There are some folks, though, that say for Democrats the problem wasn't as much the money, it was the message, that there either wasn't a consistent message or that the message just didn't resonate with voters. What are you going to talk about to voters in 2011 that you think, and 2012, of course, that you think is going to move the needle?
Well, the first thing is that we are going to be competitive on the world stage. I think Americans, as you saw from a recent poll, for the first time are wondering whether their lives for their children, the lives for their children are going to be better than their lives. Now, America has always been the country of the future, the country that says we can compete, we're smart, we work hard, we're going to do well. So the first message is, America, you are still strong, you can do great things. There are things that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to make sure that we, build our bridges, get our infrastructure in straight, make our investments in education, make our investments in energy. Let me just give you an incredible fact. When President Kennedy, my uncle, said we're going to put, and he said a man, but I'll say a person, yes, on the moon, he spent $13 billion a year for NASA. And out of that came not only a person on the moon showing the Soviets that we could beat them in outer space, but it also had numerous new industries being formed. Right now, we're spending $3 billion on energy. We've got to spend more money. We've got to do those kind of investments so that we can compete. Right now, China's spending billions of dollars on new energy products. Why aren't we? And we've got to make sure that we're changing the dialogue in Washington to say that the federal government has a role to play to make us competitive. All throughout American history, government has had a role. And I think that the Republicans are on the wrong side of history when they say they don't.
Okay, Kathleen, we're almost out of time, but I want to get you just to come down from the lofty goals to a very specific question now before the Congress.
You got it, John.
Okay, so here we have this big debate over the tax issue. Will it be a mistake if Democrats essentially cave in on this and agree to an across-the-board extension of those Bush tax cuts, even if it's temporary?
Yeah, look, I think what you know is that you should have the tax cuts for people, as you said, making $200,000 or less, or $250,000 for a couple. But for people making over that, where are they spending their money? They're not spending it necessarily, or if they're investing, they're going to be investing in new markets in China and in India. They're not creating jobs here in the United States. So what we need to do is make sure that we're creating jobs here, that we're helping entrepreneurs here, that we're helping small businesses here. And that's what Democrats stand for.
So is that message, don't cave in on this issue, hold out for an extension? You got it. All right.
You got it.
All right. Like it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to be with you.
Hope to have you on soon enough to talk about your $80 million that you've raised.
Oh, that would be great.
All right. Thank you.